some of the signs that we have seen on NSO targeted devices as well as others really relates to some things that every user can see. For example, problems accessing microphone or camera. That's a very common one. No updates. That's also a common one. Like, iOS 15 is already out or iOS 14.8 is already out, but your automatic updates are not working, or that if you click on it and try to update, you just can't. And that's really something that we have seen very common. We've also seen sudden reboots. I would say the number one indicator of attacks is probably sudden reboots. So absolutely recommending to pay more attention to these. If you want to do a forced reboot, well, actually, we'll get to that later, but there's some ways that you can revoke any attackers that don't have persistency from your device. And you can do it by forcing a reboot, but if they have a 0-click, then that's meaningless because they can basically reinfect you after you reboot. So there are many ways. Other things that are not necessarily, not all of these, by the way, necessarily point to an attack. For example, you can have your device heating without an attack. You can have keyboard delays without an attack. Maybe your battery is low, so that like if you're on 1% or 2%, that could also happen. Reboot loop is actually not very common without an attack. Unrecognized profiles, MDMs, that's also uncommon. Unexpected pin code pop-ups in a different design than what you usually see. That's also very suspicious and very shady. So just pay attention to that, and I'm sure you'll see stuff. We've also seen recently a case where the camera was open when no other application was open. So you can see the green light. That's a visual indicator on the device. You can see the green light, but then there is no app using the camera. So that's a nice visual indicator that every user can spot. Some best practices on how you can basically make your device safer. So update to the latest version. I mean, that works. It doesn't work against 0 days, but it's still definitely most recommended for most users. There are so many vulnerabilities that were patched in iOS 15. So if you're still running on iOS 14.7 or something like that, any semi-sophisticated attackers can use that, the vulnerabilities that were patched, to infiltrate into your device using N days. So that's actually very recommended to update to iOS 15. We also recommend doing hard reboot once a day. I think that's fair to do that. The way you do hard reboot is basically clicking on iOS button, the volume up, then the volume down, then long press on power, and the device would basically shut down immediately. That's very recommended if the attackers don't have any persistency and they just sent you a link and somehow got your device to be compromised. That's your way, easy way out. There is also the ability of recording app activity. You can do it once a week. For some reason, Apple just released this new feature. I'll go back to that later. You can do it simply by going into privacy, record app activity, and then turn it on. For some reason, they don't allow you to do more than 7 days. I don't know why. And I'm not sure if they allow this to do from third-party apps. It's kind of lockdown system, which slightly helps the ability to secure these devices, but it is what it is. And hopefully that will change one day. We're definitely seeing a positive change. So with every new version, some other features open up and some other information is available for analysis. But I would still be encouraging Apple to open up memory for inspections, because we are seeing attackers that are using fileless infections, like in-memory attacks. And the second one is full file system read-only access. I think that would also help these types of attacks. For example, if we had this capability with Pegasus and NSO, we would have been easily able to extract the payload within moments of the attack. So in a way, not having these capabilities hurts the platform more than it helps it, because the users were left exposed to these vulnerabilities for more than a year, because it's so locked down, and not being able to obtain the exploits is kind of hurting the platform. Don't leave the phone alone. So basically, we spoke about the boot ROM exploit that we've detected last week. That's not recommended to leave it like in the hotel for a few hours or once you're traveling, etc. So keep that in mind. Some basic features like enable PIN code and face recognition. It's going to make anyone who has physical access life a bit harder, especially if it's newer versions than iPhone X, which doesn't have a publicly known boot ROM exploit. And then notice the signs of compromise. So, for example, what we said: lack of updates, sudden reboots, device heating, things like that. Camera turning on without any app using it. Those are common signs that attackers constantly do, and every user can basically see those. Other things: avoid installing apps from non-trusted developers and apps. Great, that's very common. Don't connect to public networks. Also very recommended. And activate 2FA wherever possible. These again are the steps of doing the recording app activity. So go to settings, privacy, record app activity, and then turn it on. And about once a week, save it and save the log file. You can also send it to us. We can analyze those, as well as the actual device.